What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the 415ers podcast, as always on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. We're going to be, shocker, getting into some quarterback rumor mill this week. It continues, Marc. That's Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. Before we dive head first, Marc, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Evan. The middle of the week here as we record this Thursday episode on a Wednesday evening. It's been a busy week around the Bay Area in the sports world. Of course, not necessarily for football reasons, for basketball reasons and Warriors reasons, but still always plenty to talk about with the 49ers. And like we talked about last episode, there's always some quarterback conversation to be had. So we'll have more of that this episode. But overall, I can't complain, Evan. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, look, it seems like an optimistic time in the Bay, as you mentioned, specifically with the basketball team over on 3rd Street at Chase Center. But, of course, as we're discussing the team formerly of San Francisco, now in the South Bay, the 49ers, we do have some good news as far as the quarterback room for the 49ers is concerned. But before we get to that, Marc, we do have to address the latest rumor, should we call it, and that concerns a Bay Area boy, well, NorCal boy, Aaron Rodgers, because he's been the latest quarterback linked to the 49ers. I mean, we pretty much went down the list in our last episode on Tuesday, which you can all go and check out. Kirk Cousins was previously the latest, for Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson. But this one was kind of interesting, Marc. It was brought up by an East Coaster. I believe Craig Carton was the one that sort of got this thing rolling on his show on FS1, Carton Show, and said, quote, Aaron Rodgers would absolutely want to play for this franchise, and after an unnecessarily long tease, specified that franchise was indeed the 49ers. So I'll let you have first crack at it before I weigh in with my thoughts on what I believe to be another, I don't want to call it completely irrelevant rumor, but it's about as close to irrelevant as you can get, considering what we also talked about in our last episode concerning Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think, first of all, remember what Aaron Rodgers said, 3 weeks ago now when he went on the Pat McAfee show and he came out of his darkness retreat in Southern Oregon. Where was that? Medford? Shout out Medford. Or maybe it was Ashland. One of those two. I forget exactly where.
Probably closer to Medford. I might even say Klamath Falls. There's a lot of darkness more so in that area. Ashland's actually pretty nice for those who are familiar with Southern Oregon. Shout out to Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
But Medford and Klamath Falls are maybe a little more prone to darkness, if you know what I'm saying.
If I have a couple of friends from Klamath. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but I agree with Evan about Klamath Falls. Not the greatest place.
Go cavemen.
But yeah, so 3 weeks ago, he came out of the darkness. He went on Pat McAfee show, and what he said, quote, it's my intention ever since I came out of the darkness, my intention to play for the New York Jets. And the reason that it hasn't happened yet, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the Jets. It's just because the Packers are trying to figure out what they want back for me and, the compensation going back to Green Bay and all of that, yada, 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 whatever. 3 weeks pass. We're now back up to the present day. Nothing has happened concretely that has sent him to New York, and he's still kind of hanging out in limbo right now, which is kind of the story of Aaron Rodgers' life, it seems, at least over the last 5 years, just hanging around in limbo. So naturally, as time passes, you need something to fill this vacuum, Evan, and apparently the Niners are the thing and the team that fills vacuums nowadays, because if you have any quarterback disgruntled who has been good in the past, who has promise of being good in the future, you're going to be linked to Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. So this, I'm with you. It's a whole big bag of nothing. This means absolutely nothing. I don't even know how good of a quarterback Aaron Rodgers is anymore, Evan. You could probably convince me if you tried hard enough that Brock Purdy might give the 49ers a better chance to win in the future than Aaron Rodgers does. And then there's the whole aspect of the money and how much money he's due and, how much he would count against the cap this year. And I'm not saying it's impossible to make it happen, but it seems very, very unlikely the 49ers would be willing to go against everything they have planned for over the last 5+ years for an aging quarterback who just had his worst season maybe of his entire career. It seems incredibly unlikely. And I think this is just kind of a dead period of the NFL offseason where you get some crazy ideas thrown out there and you try to see what sticks. This one is not sticking.
Yeah, I don't know which part of this I want to dispel first, but there's like three different reasons why I think that one, it can't happen, and two, I don't think this is actually the intention of the guy who brought it up. So I'll start first with the football side of things. Aaron Rodgers last season, to put it bluntly, fell off a cliff. Like from the
Hmm.
two MVP seasons he had the prior 2 years to last season, I believe he threw 11 less touchdowns than the year before. He had his first double digit interception season since 2010, and his completion percentage fell off about 5 or 6 points. So if you're looking at a reason why you don't want an aging quarterback, that would be one. Two, to your point about the financials, we talked last episode about how Kirk Cousins is owed, I think, 38 million. That'd be his cap hit for next year. Aaron Rodgers is significantly higher than that. And the 49ers, from what I've read, have about $3 to $4 million in cap space currently. Again, you could sort of finagle this the way that teams do, although they've already done that to accommodate Javon Hargrave. I think they restructured Fred Warner's contract and some others to try and make room for the big fella. So again, the quarterback doesn't really fit into that picture, as we've discussed with Cousins as well as Jackson. The third part of this is Mark. All right. I do have respect for Craig Carton. He's been in the business for a long time. He's a successful media member. I know there's been some um, shadiness around his past, but he's back, and he, by all accounts, appears to be leading a entertaining television program, The Carton Show. However, I do know, and from what I've read, that Craig Carton has been linked to the past to the Jets specifically. I think he was the one that called for Adam Gase prior to him getting fired that he was going to get let go, and that happened. So my guess is why this is such a topic is that Craig Carton is very close to the New York Jets. And who is Aaron Rodgers linked to? The New York
Hmm.
Jets. Who does he want to go to? The New York Jets. And what is a better way between two sides, the Packers and the Jets, who are trying to figure out what type of trade capital is going to go over to Green Bay to get this signal caller in New York City? What better way to try and force their hand than throw the team that's a quarterback away from a Super Bowl essentially into the mix and saying, hey, if you guys don't, hurry up in Green Bay, he might be going on over to San Francisco, and then you're really going to have problems because he immediately makes them a Super Bowl contender. But I mean, Craig Carton, like you're talking about throwing multiple third round picks, a first round pick in the future, things that just don't honestly makes sense for what it would take to get Aaron Rodgers, even if it was fiscally possible. So, all of that wrapped up together, Mark, makes me feel like this is even less likely than potentially Kirk Cousins coming to the Bay Area. And I think Greg Carton is trying to essentially maybe poke the Green Bay Packers a little bit because his team in New York City needs a quarterback badly.
Yeah, I that's an interesting idea. Maybe he's also kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the New York Jets. Like, hey, it takes two to make a deal. Like, you can maybe get a little more aggressive here and trying to make this happen. Like, offer the extra pick, extra compensation, whatever that maybe you weren't trying to part with. Maybe the Packers are demanding. Just get this done because if you keep waiting, who knows what might happen. I am very confident that it's not going to happen with the 49ers, no matter how long it takes for Rodgers, Packers, and Jets and everyone to decide where they're going to go and what's going to happen. But maybe it's also a little bit of a message towards the Jets, like, hey, get this done because you never know what might happen. Um, Interesting. I could see that for sure. It is, of course, a topic that you say something like this, even if it's not even backed in any kind of actual reporting, Evan. And I know we're going to talk about another rumor here coming up, which I don't think is backed in any sort of reporting. It's more just a media member going up in front of a mic and saying, now, wouldn't this be cool? And then Twitter runs wild with it, and everyone's like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers linked to the 49ers. This is such a big deal. Could you imagine if this happens? So I do think there's a little bit of an overreaction to these sorts of things where there isn't anything, I don't know, physical. There isn't actually any physical evidence. It's just theoretical and hypothetical. So I think that's where we are with this as well. But maybe there are some ulterior motives in play on the part of Craig Carton because he desperately wants to see Rodgers with the Jets.
I mean, yeah, look, he's been going there from the beginning, essentially, ever since he came out of that five-star cave in Medford or Klamath Falls, Oregon. I mean, that's where he wants to go. And right now, I mean, he came out with a wish list that the New York Jets have so far accommodated, and picking up Lazard and going after Randall Cobb and all. He's going to bring the gang from Green Bay over to Gotham City, and it's going to be
Hey, but
great.
but Rodgers also said, "Hey, I didn't give them any sort of wish list. I didn't give them any set of demands. No, no, no. No, I didn't do
Yeah, apologies. He sent it into Santa, and then Santa sent it over to the workshop, and his
that."
elves got to going on his wish list. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.